Hey, welcome to the Direct Response Podcast. I'm Travis Ketchum, your host, joined today by David Cartolano of Wealthy Inbox. Thanks for being here, David.
Hey, happy to be here, man.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about queued email, which is kind of a weird one. And in the context of that can definitely change depending on if you're talking about, hey, I want to send an email to David and it's not going out versus I'm sending an email to 5 million people in my email service provider. The results are definitely different. So let's break down those two use cases and kind of the common reasons, concerns, and most importantly, how to resolve it if you're having issues with that. Do you want to start with the queued email if you're sending one-to-one? So if you wanted to send me a personal email, some of the issues that you've had and how you would troubleshoot that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a cute email to give you an idea of what it looks like. It's like when an email is in the outbox, right? It's sending, it's on its way, but you don't know whether or not it's made it or not. It's kind of this weird digital purgatory. And for me, when I've seen that, my response from learning the hard way in the past is I've heard this saying in jujitsu where it's sometimes the best move is to not make one. And when I see that kind of issue happening, that outbox happening, I think, okay, maybe it's my internet, maybe it's the server itself taking a while. And what I do is I pause, I walk away, and I come back. So that's what I've done for one-on-one email, but also just in general for marketing emails as well. I think if you're a human being sending emails on this planet, you will at some point encounter a queuing issue, even if it's for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I think that's normal. And actually, a lot of mailbox providers even build in an automatic buffer time where they intentionally wait to send it because it's actually a feature, not a bug. And what they're
Mm,
doing there is allowing you to undo because you can't actually, undo sending them an email really in most cases. I mean, I know that Outlook has some stuff for you corporate folks out there about, removing it from their inbox if they haven't opened it yet. But for the rest of us normies out there, you can't really undo it. And so what they do is they allow you to hit send and sort of think about it for a second. And you think, wait, hold on, shoot, did I actually attach the file? Did I actually do the link? Did I actually do the thing I meant to do? And there's usually an undo button. And all that really is it's waiting to make sure that you really wanted it to send and giving you a time delay. Usually it's 10 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever.
mm,
A lot of times though, if you're trying to troubleshoot this, you have to ask yourself, okay, did I attach a copy of Lord of the Rings onto this? Like, is it a huge video file that's obviously not going to work? Is something wrong with the way that my email service is configured to send? So did someone touch my domain if it's a professional one? If you're using a third-party mail client like Apple Mail or Spark or Outlook or whatever, is the way it's configured to talk to my preferred mail service, even if it's a free one like Gmail, Outlook, or what have you, is that configured properly? If it's using like Comcast or one of your, internet service provider emails, are they having an outage? Are they having an issue that can't take it right now? And maybe your mail client can try again later. Conversely, too, maybe it's the recipient. Maybe it did technically send, but it got a hold on, they're full. That mailbox isn't receiving an email right now. And it told your email to step aside, step out of that security line and wait for a minute. And
mm.
so again, give them time to deal with their issue on their end and retry automatically oftentimes. But don't just freak out like you said, and don't just send right away and try to, oh, it didn't send, and all of a sudden your recipient gets 450 versions of your issue.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, that's something that again I've done it in the past and I've had to send an email after that saying, hey, it looks like our system has sent duplicate emails. If you got them, it's okay. You can just delete the second one, but read the first one. It's really great. And surprisingly, people actually open those emails for whatever reason. I think one thing to also touch on is if you are sending hundreds of thousands of emails, it ain't going to happen in a second, right? It's one thing if you have a 3,000 person email list or 1,000 person newsletter, but once you start getting into stadium size, like Yankee Stadium and multiples of Yankee Stadium size, like single sends, that's going to take some time, and things might not fire off the way you want them to fire off because that's what kind of happens when you're sending to literally hundreds of thousands of people. And in those scenarios, I think one of the things to do, like I said, is take a deep breath, relax, let it do its thing. But if it's still not sending, instead of duplicating and then just hitting that send button again and again, reach out to your email service provider support team, because they are way more likely to help you with the issue than you. And please be a good human. You know what I mean? Like, don't yell at people because an email's not going out. Like, there are people with bigger problems in the world than you. You don't scream at support people who are just trying to do their jobs. All right, I had to put that in there because people can get pretty nuts on support, man.
Yeah, and I understand, every problem you're experiencing feels like the most important problem because it's your most important problem right now. But anyway, I think your feedback there is definitely warranted. One thing I will say too, when you reach out to your email service provider, is not only are they better equipped to help you, but they're better equipped to look at deeper back-end logs to understand what's really going on, right? Because usually that tells a deeper story that isn't always appropriate to surface inside of the user interface that most customers are touching or seeing, because they'd be freaked out by the positive codes, let alone the negative ones, and wouldn't know how to properly interpret that, understand what that's trying to tell them and what that means going forward. So there are, if you think about it, if you zoom out, the internet and email is actually this complicated set of systems and subsystems that all have to talk to each other in a certain way, in a certain order, at a certain success rate. And just like any chain, if any link in that chain becomes weak or wobbly, it's not going to complete, right? Because it only takes one to cause a problem. That being said, even if everything is on point, you have to understand, is my behavior as a sender changing, especially when you're talking about those bigger volumes. So if Gmail and Yahoo and Microsoft are not used to seeing you send 300,000 or whatever, even if that is the size of your list, if you're normally sending a couple thousand, or you haven't emailed your list in 6 months, and you hit send, nothing might actually be quote unquote wrong. What's happening is you are way outside of the bounds of normal. And so those those different mailbox providers are basically hedging their risk, and they might be telling your email service provider, hold on a second, if you can just pause and slow down that speed and slow down that volume and try the rest of it later, we'd really appreciate it, because we're not sure what to think about this sender. And so they may be intentionally telling it to take a hike and to retry in 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 hours, what have you. When you talk about actual send speeds, because of that, and knowing that scenario can happen, your email service provider may actually intentionally add a throttle. So even though they could technically, from how fast can the computer process the data, the list of contacts, format everything, and tell it to send, even though that may be seconds to get through it, which would be amazing because it's a lot of compute power. If it can't be received at that rate, you may actually be better off and get better end results 24 hours from now if you slow down and smooth out your sending rather over time. So instead of trying to send it all in one minute, maybe you spread that out over an hour, 3 hours, a full day, depending on the size of the audience, the kind of message, or whatever. There are significant benefits to that sometimes from a deliverability standpoint. So again, a lot of confluence of technologies and things at play here, but I think, David, your advice and feedback of don't freak out, kind of let it do its thing. And if you're not seeing what you need within an hour, 2 hours, what have you, then you can go ahead and reach out to your email service provider.
Yep, and that's perfect. And I think it's going to put another note in that if it becomes a pattern, take a look at what you're doing as a sender and say, oh my gosh, am I really like pushing out 500,000 emails and expecting them all to go out perfectly? Or take a look at your provider and ask them, hey, am I just getting lukewarm canned responses to this? And maybe the provider isn't as good as they say they are. So that's something I would be suspicious of. If you keep getting this problem again and again and again and again, and it's not an isolated incident every so often, maybe you're putting your money toward the wrong email company. That's just my 2 cents as someone that's been in a lot of different ESPs. Please be suspicious of the product. All right. Make sure that they prove themselves of the quality that they always talk about. So that's it. That's my simple 3-step list.
Well, and just to add one extra little footnote to that is, even the best providers in the world are going to have problems at some point.
Yeah,
So
totally.
the expectation that there is certainly a gradient of quality of performance, but even if you take the people that are sort of the S tier, right, the premium top of the list providers, they're all going to have issues at some point, primarily because there are things outside of their control, right? There may be a particular mailbox provider that has an outage. There may be an underlying system that has a problem. Some layer of their stack is, we talk about this confluence of technologies, right? It's just the law of averages that something is bound to go wrong, to be delayed, but that is not necessarily like a black eye forever. It is just expect the unexpected to a certain extent. Now, if it becomes a pattern consistently over long periods of time, then maybe take a look at, okay, is this more than just dumb luck or dumb bad luck, right? Maybe something's actually going on here that's a problem, but understand that there is no scenario where you send high volumes of email and you go without problems forever. That just unfortunately is not on the table. Just like everything else in life, it's about mitigating risk, reducing the number of interruptions, reducing the number of problems. And if you are down that path, you are down the right path.
Perfect. Perfect. And that's
Cool.
it.
Cool. Well, I hope that this answers your question about queued email. Pretty straightforward if you're a single sender, a little more complex if you're a bulk sender. David, hit him with some wisdom. Where can they find you?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find me at wealthyinbox.news and sign up for my newsletter on how to scale and exit your newsletter.
Yeah, very important. No more queued email. At least less queued email if you're scaling that newsletter, right? And if you're looking for a quality provider that can actually understands email, can look at those logs, can communicate email marketer to email marketer, check out campaignrefinery.com, link in the description, as well as a much more in-depth about different kinds of queuing codes and specific problems, technical issues you may want to review. Our content team put together a really great research piece for you down below as well. Until next time, talk soon.